Right, cool. Recording has started. So yeah, again, my name's Andy Tabus. I'm a three-time Microsoft MVP. My company is WorkSmart Database Masters, and I run the PowerApps group. Um, if you haven't joined the user group yet, you can just go to AccessUserGroups.org/PowerApps. I run both this group as well as the Access Eastern Time group. And within that group, basically, uh, we have a small topic like uh, Friday we're talking about list boxes and how you can use those more effectively, and then the rest of the time is all Q&A. So a lot of times people will bring in questions and just kind of present them to the group, and we'll try and get those solved, or at least point people in a direction that day. I've got my email address here, andy@worksmartdb.com. I've got my mobile number, if you guys ever need to reach me directly, feel free to reach out to me. Today we're going to be talking about integrating Power BI tiles into your Power App. Power App is a great device for managing and browsing your data and editing that data. But sometimes we want to enhance those with other programs. And so what we're going to be talking about today is integrating that data. And so I'm going to move some things around here, and I'm going to jump into this is Power BI, and this is Power Apps. So we're going to actually be creating a brand new Power App, and we'll be integrating some Power BI charts so you can see how to do that. So to create a new Power App, we go into Apps and we click on Create an App. The data that this is based on is in Excel in my OneDrive folder, so I'll show you that. Here's my OneDrive folder for the Power Apps group, and the one we'll be playing with, see, it may take a second to come up. Are you able to see it now? Nope. Okay, hold on a second. I'm going to share my full desktop. It's doing that. All right, I'm going to switch things just for a second. I'm going to switch it over to one, and then I'm going to switch it back to my desktop. Strange. So are you guys able to see it right now? The Power Apps? Okay, you can see Power Apps, good. And I'm going to click on Power BI. Can you see Power BI? All right, awesome. All right, weird. That was strange. Okay, so in Power Apps, we're going to start by using the file from OneDrive. So I'm going to go ahead and choose OneDrive is automatically here. I'm going to click on Phone Layout. And in here, I've got my OneDrive. I'm logged in, Andy@worksmartdb.com, and we're going to be using this Start one. And then within this, we have a table called International MVPs Table. And so when you're working, that's one thing to kind of point out. When you're working with Power BI and Power Apps, what you want to do, you actually want to open up Excel and highlight all the fields, and tell it to basically click on Insert, choose Table, and then you can name your table. I've already done that beforehand to kind of jump over that, so just kind of save us some time. But basically, you want to create a table within Excel. Just highlight all your data, tell it to create a table. You can name it, and that way PowerApps can see it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and choose a table called International MVPs table. So I'm going to go ahead and connect to that. And I've signed out of some parts of my system, so in here it may be asking me to log in at different points. I'm going to go ahead and skip this. And so when you create a Power App for the first time based on your data, it always creates three different screens for you. One is the browse screen. And again, we've gone over a lot of this in previous videos, so feel free to watch earlier videos. But in here we've got what's called a browse screen. That's where you kind of see your list of all of your customers or all of your shipments or things like that. In this case, we're looking at the list of all of the MVPs internationally. We've also got what's called a detail screen. A detail screen is basically a list view of looking at a specific record and just viewing that record, not necessarily editing that record. And then the third screen it creates is called an edit screen. And the edit screen allows you to edit the fields that are in your Excel, in this case, the Excel data that it's pulling in. Now, PowerApps tries to come up with what it thinks is how you want to view the information, and a lot of times it gets it wrong, and so you kind of have to move some things around. And so in this case, instead of seeing access here, what I want to do is I want to actually choose the person instead, because I don't want to see what database they're working with. And by the way, I don't know if you're familiar with MVPs. I'm a Microsoft MVP for Microsoft Access, and there's and so is Juan Soto, and I believe George Hepworth, and some of these people that have been in the Access community for a long time. But there are also MVPs for other specialties within Microsoft. So you'll have Excel MVPs, you'll have Azure MVPs, you'll have Visual Studio MVPs, you've got Xbox MVPs, you've got Surface MVPs, OneNote MVPs. So you got them in many different areas of specialty. I just happen to be one in Microsoft Access because I've been programming in Access since '94, so I'm kind of dating myself a little bit. But in here, the A's are first, so that's why you're seeing access. But instead of showing category, in this case, I'm going to choose person. That's one of my items. And so you see Brent, one of my friends, is there. And then it shows what's if he's in the United States or where he is. This one here, Anis, which looks like Anders, but it's pronounced Anis. He's from Denmark. Below that, it says 11, and 11 is how many awards you've gotten. So every year you can be re-awarded the MVP. All right, can you hear me now? Okay. It looks like Steven jumped off for a second. I'm going to see if he's going to, we'll see if he reconnects. So in this case, we've got Brent Spalding, and he's in the United States. But this third field here, we don't want this to be number of awards. You'll notice that when instead of having a space, they actually insert all of this extra text for that space. So it's inserting all of this text for the space. So just keep that in mind when you're working with this. In this case, we're going to have category. So we've got Brent and then US and then access. So this is kind of how you search for people. The next screen that we'll see is the detail screen. And so in the detail screen, you'll see the category, the country, the number of awards, and person. Now, for me, I like to have the information in the same order that you search for it. And so in the detail screen, I'm actually going to move these cards around a little bit. So I'm going to take the person, and notice that this black area is called a card, and I'm going to move the card up. And now we've got the person, we've got the category. I'm going to take the category card and move that down. And so now we've got person, country, category, and the numbers. And I'm going to edit this text box so that it says, whoops. So I'm going to unlock this in order to change the display name, and I'm going to call this number of awards. And so that way you can see it. Now, when I look at things from an Access perspective, because I've been doing it for 30 years, and in the Access world, the design view and the single form view are actually the same form itself. In PowerApps, it's a little different. In PowerApps, the edit screen is different than the list view screen. And so you'll notice that here I'm in the detail screen. If I click on edit, you'll notice that these are in different fields. Now, from a UX or user experience background, sometimes it can be confusing for the user if they view something on the detail screen in one order and then they go to the edit screen and it's in a different order. And so what I try and do is either hide the things that they're not editing, or gray them out, or make them inactive, or you can go and you can put them in the same order that you have the other one in. And so in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and in the detail screen, we've got person, country, category, number of awards. And so in the edit, we're going to have person, country, category, number of awards. We're going to go ahead and change this display name as well, number of awards, so that so that looks good. And that's really all we have to do for this app. Yep. Yeah, and a lot of people do that, David, where they'll rename the same form. The nice thing about the auto create is that it will automatically create those 3 versions for you, but then you have to edit, move things around.
Yeah, so, sorry. It's probably easier if I just unmute my mic,
Yeah,
so that way you don't have to stop
yeah,
and read what I was typing. But yeah, that's a, just a difference between Access, or I guess you have to. It's a different way of doing it. And yeah, you're right. You have to, unfortunately, change multiple different forms, as opposed to just setting up the one form and then, maybe unlocking it for edit and then
right.
unlocking it for read, depending on, how you wanted to use it. But I'll let you keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that's one of the suggestions that I've made to the Power Apps team, is because having them be the same seems like a kind of a common sense thing. But I mean, I understand why they did it that way, because in some cases you might have a long detail view with maybe you have 10 10, 15, 20 fields that you can't see. And when you go into the edit view, there's only some of those fields that you may want them to be able to edit. You may not want them to be able to edit the country or the category, and so you leave those fields off of the edit. And
I,
so that's just
I
one
see.
way.
So everything you put on the edit screen can be edited?
Um, well, you can make everything editable on the edit screen unless it's locked in, in your database application itself.
All right, all right.
But
Uh,
so what I'm saying is that a lot of times, if I will only put like a couple fields that are uh, disabled, so they know that they're still on Brent, but they can't edit his name. Um,
Gotcha. That's what I was getting at is that you can put all the fields on there, but then you can gray out some of the fields or something.
right, and
I
like if we don't need country, I can just delete that out, and you can see it'll auto space it so that that way you're only showing those that the user can edit.
Gotcha.
But
I apologize. I will stop interrupting you now.
no, 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 please. It's you and me, David. So uh, you ask whatever questions. That's what this is for.
Go for it.
That's what this is for. So please ask any questions you have.
All
Um,
right.
this is a good opportunity for you because you can stop and ask whatever questions you have.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. So now we have these three screens, and the next thing we want to do is be able to add some Power BI stuff into this. And so what we're going to do is we're actually going to go and we're going to create some Power BI charts and graphs. And so you can see I've actually got some here, but I'm going to create a new one. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new dashboard, and I'm going to call this. I'm just going to call it MVPs. That'll be easy for us to remember. So we've got a new dashboard called MVPs. Um, Next, what we're going to do, we're actually going to create some reports that are within this. So we can actually go in, and I've already got some reports built in, but you can also create reports right from this screen as well. So what I'm going to show you is in here you can go into this, you can save copies of this, you can print this, but let me go back here. Whoops. So in here, I'm going to show you both of these. So what I've done is I've created this list of MVPs report, and again, this isn't really a Power Apps session, but I want to be able to show you here that what we have here is we've got category, country, number of awards, and person, and this data is pulling directly from that Excel sheet. And so we can actually go in here and we can choose, okay, where is this data pulling from? We can say, okay, it's in OneDrive, and then it starts loading all of your OneDrive stuff here. And so now we've got MVPs for Power BI Start or the demo. I can go ahead and choose one of these, and it's going to go ahead and pull this up for me. And one interesting thing is when this is an Excel online sheet, and in here, when Power Apps, when you add this data to Power Apps, it automatically adds a new field here called PowerApps ID, and this is a field that it's now added within Excel to be able to manage what that is. And so one of the things that they allow you to do is if you are on the road and you don't have an internet connection, but you have access to your Power App because you've got it on your phone, that PowerApp ID allows you to edit the data of this person, and then when you connect back online, it allows you to it automatically will update that information that you have.
It's
Uh,
actually very cool, and I can see a lot of applications for that.
yeah, and then in some, have you seen shoot, it's called, gosh, my mind totally went blank. Uh, there, there's another part of this that allows you to um, have interchange the data back and forth. My mind just totally went blank. Um,
N-
I'll,
I
I'll,
I'm not I don't know. I may have run across it, but I don't know off the top of my head. But
yeah.
um,
Oh, it's
it's
common. Yeah, it's Common Data Service.
yeah,
And it used to be called Common Data Model, but the Common Data Service allows you to, let's say if you didn't want to update all of this data, but you only wanted to be able to show the user 2 fields or 3 fields, you could use that Common Data Model or Common Data Service to connect to that Azure database, only grab the 2 or 3 fields from that you need, and those can be read only or whatever you want, and then the user will only see those within the application. And that way you're not like if you have an Azure database, you don't want to pull over all of those tables and all of that data at once. You may only want to see 2 or 3 fields. And
yeah.
so that Common Data Service allows you to do that. And we actually I think we have a video on the Common Data Service there. But I wanted to show you that it adds that PowerApps ID there. And so that's OneDrive. Okay, so we're going to go back to Power BI. I don't think I
I'm
have it.
pretty familiar with Power BI. I mean,
Okay,
I can get myself in trouble with it.
good. Yeah, it's quite the tool. I've got a friend of mine, Richard Love, that is an absolute expert in Power BI, and it's amazing the stuff that he has been able to do with it. Really, really slick.
I'm
Really, really cool
I'm
stuff.
I'm quite impressed with it.
Yeah, it's really slick. Um, and so the one thing that I want to kind of keep in mind is in reports, if we want to add a report to a dashboard, it's a little different. In order for it to show up as a tile, what you need to do is you actually have to hover over that chart, and up here it says pin visual, and you have to pin that to the dashboard. So we're going to pin that to the existing dashboard called MVPs. And we have to do that. If we don't do that, it's not going to show up in the Power Apps listing. So you have to be very careful to do that. And so you have to do that for the uh, other reports that you're working with. So in this case, I've got I've also got this report, and I'm going to pin this one. Again, I'm going to pin this to MVPs. And then we've got this, close that one. And then this one, we've got the same thing. We want to click on that little pin, and we're going to pin that to MVPs. And again, it's very important that you do that. If you don't do that, what's going to happen is, and it hasn't refreshed here yet. I'm sure it hasn't refreshed. So I'm going to go ahead and create a blank screen. This is where we're gonna add our Power BI, and I'm going to click on Insert, Controls. We're going to scroll down to Power BI Tile, and it's going to try and add it. Our workspace is my workspace. Dashboard is MVPs. It refreshed it too fast. For once, it actually did it fast. The other two times I've done it, it's taken its sweet time. But you could actually see a lot of times this tile will be blank, and it's because it hasn't refreshed that information.
Gotcha. And it might take 15 minutes or something like that.
Exactly. And what I found is if it does that and you're waiting around is taking too long, I find if you log out of Power BI, log out of Power Apps, and then re-log into Power Apps, it'll show up fairly quickly, 30 seconds to a minute. Whereas if you
Gotcha.
let it sit and wait, sometimes it can take like 15 minutes. You're like, gosh, I know I added it, and with me, I keep going back to Power BI, and I'm like, well, what did I do wrong?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and the biggest thing is pinning, pinning that. If you don't pin it, um, then it's
yeah.
then it's bad news.
I get that same type of thing with Office 365. When I add something to it, then you sometimes have to wait around for a while for it to catch back up, and the all that stuff is linked together. SharePoint, Exchange, and Azure Direct, what is it? Azure Active Directory. So
Right,
sometimes they say up to 24 hours. I've never had to wait that long, but sometimes you have to just go get a cup of coffee and
right.
try it again later. But
Yeah, it reminds me of the old Postscript days. I used to do desktop publishing back in the mid to late 80s, and I literally would hit the button to print uh, a Postscript document. I would,
yeah,
head out, go to Burger King, grab a burger, come back, 45, 50 minutes later, and it's still printing. It's like,
we
oh my gosh.
we had a legacy system that we would spool jobs overnight. They would take 8 hours to spool and print.
Yeah.
It was it was mind numbing.
Yeah. Well, I've got one that reminds me of one of my clients that's an Access client. One of the things that they do for each of their employees is they have a 6 month printout, and every month it shows the previous six months, but that kind of that calendar shows the days that they were late and the days that they were sick or holidays and all that kind of stuff. And that had to spool through, 600 employees, and they set it up because that calendaring portion takes quite a while to do it. And so it's they'll it's like load it up with paper, hit the process key and head home, and
Yeah.
it takes 5 or 6 hours to process. But um, yeah, so this is how we add it. Just the biggest thing, make sure you click on Pin Visual, and when you click on Pin Visual, then it appears on the dashboard.
Gotcha.
So yeah, so now we're going to go back into Power Apps, and that appears. So I'm going to go ahead and choose, and I should have named these a little bit differently, but in this case, this is the count of in. Go ahead and close this and bring this up a little bit. And so this is based on the different categories that we grabbed. So it's giving you a count for each of those different categories. And so we're going to go ahead and we're going to rename this screen to, I'm just going to call it bar chart. So we've got that one done. And so now we're going to create another new screen. This is going to be blank as well. Again, we're going to click on Controls, Power BI Tile. This time we're going to choose the same workspace, same MVPs that we created. This will grab the second one, and this will be the world map. So we're going to rename this one to world map. Actually, this one, I'm going to rename this one to bar chart without a space. Makes it a little bit easier. And now we're going to add a third one, which is going to be that data sheet. So we're going to create a new blank one. And again, we're going to go into Controls, Power BI Tile, This one can take up the whole screen. My workspace, MVPs, number of awards. And so this is that one that has all the different awards. And then we're going to rename this one, and I'm just going to call this MVP datasheet. And so now we have those created. Now we've got the browse screen, the detail screen, the edit screen. We've got the bar chart. We've got the world map and the MVP datasheet. Now, this is well and good, but the problem with what we've done so far is we can't go from one place to another. If I click on Run here, I can see this datasheet, but I can't get to the other screens. Same thing with this world map. I can see the world map. I'm going to go ahead and run this, but I can't get to the other screens. So the next thing we need to do, if we've got multiple of these going, is that we're going to go ahead and add some buttons to this so we can whoops, I click on it, it's going to open up that chart in Power BI. I'll go ahead and close that. I don't need that.
So you've got to add some sort of navigation to go from screen to screen.
Exactly, right. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add buttons. So we've got this button, and this on select of this button, we're going to use the navigation control. So you just choose navigate. And then which one do we want? Let's say we're going to do bar chart first. Choose bar
That's
chart.
pretty cool. It's so easy.
Yeah, it's really, it from a VBA standpoint, it takes us a little while to get used to, because Power BI came out of the Excel world. It started in Excel and they turned it into its own product, and so some of these different formulas can get pretty extensive, but it's nice because it tries to fill in as much as it can for you. So that's our button, and I'm going to call this bar chart. And now we're going to create another button. I can either copy and paste it. I'll just create another button. Move this over. And this button will navigate. And this will go to the MVP datasheet. Whoops. And I'm going to change the button text to datasheet. And if I want to, I can copy. Whoops.
You've got the, yeah.
Right there. I forgot the close paren. So that's one thing too, is it shows you when you've got the wrong formula there. Yeah, it's still seeing my page break. There we go. Oh, that looks good.
Doesn't like your none.
Yeah, it needs to be a capital N. Interesting.
Okay.
Interesting. I never noticed that before. So we've got those created, and if I want to, I can do a Control C, come to the MVP datasheet. Come on, something flaky is happening with my mouse. Oh, come on. Come on. Interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and add those, and this datasheet one we're going to change to the world map. We're going to change this world map. And then we're going to do the same thing for the bar chart. That's very strange that it's doing that.
Have you ever come up with a trick to uh, create an easier navigation control? Maybe something with a list of all the pages that you pick?
I have not, but that's a great question. I haven't. It's quite possible that they have a.
Because I can see that this would get um, if you have to do this for each screen, which you do, unless you want to just keep using the back button to get to maybe a main menu or something, then um,
Yeah, what if
there's a
there were?
lot of work and a lot of points for maybe mistyping something or.
Yeah, and what I probably would have done if there was more than three to look at, I would have probably added a drop-down box that lists the different screens that I would change to, and that way you could just hit the drop-down, select it, and then hit one button to go to that form.
Gotcha. Sorry. That's exactly what I was asking, is if there was something to save yourself a lot of time there.
Yeah, that's the way I would do it, is just use a
Okay.
combo box and handle it that way. Because even here, I mean, this is nice now because we can click on world map, we can click on data sheet, we can go back to the bar chart, whatever we want. So it allows
Yeah.
us to move it around, which is nice, but we still don't have a way to get back to the original data. We can click on something and pull it up in Power BI, which is nice. It opens up Power BI for us. And this is nice because now we can zoom in on this. We can click on North America and say, okay, you can kind of see where things are, where people are. I can click on AI and I can see where that's represented on the map. You can see how many, where's the most Azure. So Azure is pretty spread out. Um, Click on OneNote. So that's one of the powers of Power BI is you can see where those people are and you can keep drilling down into it. Um, but again, in this case, we've got world map and datasheet. But what are we missing? We're missing getting back to the browse screen. So those buttons still are not getting us back to here. And so then I would need to add another button that takes you, and I would probably use an icon like a home icon button to do that. But I would have to add a home button to each of these as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I don't need to do that here, but you
No,
can.
because I'm tracking exactly what you're doing. Very, it's very, very easy. So if um, for sake of unless you want practice with your presentation, go for it. But you can. I gotcha.
Good, good. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. I mean, being able to display these visuals is really nice on a Power App because, I was listening to Sadia was on, I can't remember what show, but he was talking about the CEO of Microsoft was talking about how they utilize these kind of things, and you can have power apps that are for marketing, and you can have one for operations or whatever it is, and you can have those dashboards set up the way that you want. And so they use Power BI like crazy inside of Microsoft, and they've even taken it a step further where they actually use the HoloLens technology, and so he'll literally have a HoloLens set up so that he can click on operations and he can see all of the different visuals in, like, it's almost like he's looking and seeing a wall of computers with all the
Yeah,
different visuals, and then he can, using the HoloLens, he can click on what he wants to and zoom into it and that kind of stuff. So you can really, take it a step further and do those kind of things.
that's cool.
Yeah. And it's pretty easy to add it in here. Again, the biggest things that you have to remember is that in Excel, make sure that you turn that into a table. You don't want to you want it to be a table. When you're in Power BI, make sure that you are pinning that report to the dashboard. And then when you're in Power Apps, make sure that you build some kind of a navigation to allow people to get from one screen to another. And if
That's
you can
interesting.
keep those three rules, uh, should be in pretty good shape.
Piece of cake, because you and I are both very familiar with building UIs in Access. So like I said, I'm totally tracking exactly what you're doing here. I'm
Awesome.
super impressed with it. A, are you able to mix and match some of the Power BI um, little, or maybe there are some controls or something. Let's just say, as a for instance, if you're on the browse screen that shows um, the particular person, the list of all the people, is there like a little KPI icon, or how they do like the little circle that has a number in the middle of it that, say out of 1 to 100, and if the person says 45 and the circle's a little bit orange, or you see what I mean? So if as a for instance, if we were talking um, uh, different systems on the manufacturing floor or something like that that had um, say I've got three different lines, and just a quick little, oh, they're all green, or oh, that one's orange, I'll click it. Yeah, are
Right.
there, can you mix and match, because this particular screen is pulling its data straight from that data table in Excel.
Right.
Would
Yeah, I'm gonna look up something. Power App.
And if I'm derailing your presentation,
No.
I'm assuming we were going to end at 11.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, I've got an 11:15 meeting,
Yep.
so this will be great. I just wanted to sneak that question in before you
Yeah.
were before
So
you were done.
yeah. So what I want to show you is this is kind of like that. If you search for um, Creative Apps and Design Challenge.
Yeah.
But if you search Power Apps, you saw for me I searched Power Apps, temperature, humidity, and Audrey had come up with this one, which is kind of cool, where you can select either temperature or cloudy, and it actually changes based on what that is. So you can have a slider control, which can change that. But the way she utilizes this, it's actually kind of interesting. All this is a white circle over a black circle, and so that's how she gets it to have kind of this little temperature look.
Yeah.
But this kind of steps you through step by step of how to create something like that, and you can probably
Okay.
start there and come up with something that you're looking for.
No, that sounds cool.
Yeah, good question. All right, awesome. Well, David, I really appreciate you joining us. I'll go ahead and stop the recording of this presentation.